Welcome to Hannity. And tonight, the Democratic National Convention is now finally over, thankfully. But there wasn't anything really Democratic about it, was there? Kamala Harris was coronated after winning 0 primary votes. Last night's acceptance speech was short on details, full of a lot of lies. And what was missing more than anything else was any list of accomplishments she could cite that she has achieved over the last 3.5 years. Now, the reason for this is simple. There are no accomplishments.
You have probably come across plenty of liars in your life. Nobody escaped that experience. But Kamala proved in her last speech that she's the queen of all hypocrites. And you are about to see that with your own eyes. First off, I've got to fill you in on some background info so you can fully grasp the scale of these lies. Her entire performance was packaged with targeted projections, like that of a middle-class woman who had to watch her mother struggle in harsh white America. Basically, the perfect bait for those in society who'd rather blame others for their own failures than take responsibility for their lives. Her favorite punchline, "I will fight for you." Yeah, right, it sounds better than "I'm going to wreck your economy." But okay, we are all familiar with these sweet-sounding, deceptive narratives from the Democrats. But let's be honest, with Kamala Harris, they reached a whole new level of delusion. This story of an oppressed woman fighting for your freedom against the villain Donald Trump, who is supposedly out to destroy the great America. But listen yourself, this clumsy propaganda supposed to cover up the total failure of the last 3.5 years. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get started.
Why won't they show Kamala and Walz in their own words, like we have been doing on this program and a few other programs? Why won't they expose her radicalism? Why are they allowing her to avoid all press conferences, all interviews, all gaggles for well over a month? How long does she need to prepare for a single, softball cupcake interview? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said that Kamala's campaign was nothing but smoke and mirrors, and he's right. Take a look.
Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors, that is Kamala's campaign in a nutshell, and that was the entire DNC. I'm glad to be home in the free state of Florida. It was one big lie from beginning to end. And we have a fake, phony, week-long event. Pretty much zero substance. Were they talking about inflation, the economy, the danger of their open borders, 11 million unvetted Harris-Biden illegal immigrants, the rape, the murder, the violent crimes that are being committed, the high cost to all of you? No, they weren't talking about any of that. The high cost of the energy pop? No, they weren't talking about that either. And never ending. The party of joy and freedom, as they say. It was really the joy of hate, the joy of hating Donald Trump, if you call that joy.
And just to match, Trump is coming to take your kids away, to hand them over to Putin, so he can use them as soldier against the free world. The fantasy knows no bound. But before we dive into the next anti-Trump tirade, I want to point out something important. We are talking about the Capitol, a story that once again makes it painfully clear that the American justice system has become a weapon for the Democratic Party. Remember the massive Black Lives Matter riots in the summer of 2020, where a crazed mob tried to storm the White House? In the shows of destruction, arson and looting, not only was $2 billion in damage done, but 40 civilians were killed. And instead of condemning this, Kamala not only tried to organize bail for the violent rioters, no, she even put herself at the forefront of this anarchy by saying, and I quote, "And they are not going to stop after Election Day." And everyone should take note of that, on both levels, that they are not going to let up, and they should not, and we should not. And now imagine if Trump had said that on January 6th. You get what I mean? Where are the charges? Which prosecutor is holding Kamala accountable? But enough talk, let's go to the next scenes and hit the subscription.
In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans and separately found liable for committing sexual abuse. And consider what he intends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent to deploy our active duty military against our own citizens.
No, we're going broke. And while she's proudly talking about the school system, is she referring to the public school where Kamala sent her kids? Oh, right, she doesn't have any. But if she did, that would be the last place she'd send them. Because the inclusion of an open border, the resulting lack of school places, and overwhelmed teachers are the set outcome for an ideologically driven education policy. Just like the soon-to-be further devastated healthcare system. I'm no expert, but what's more important to you? Fancy words or solid results? And let me tell you please one thing. There's no one better than this man right here who's going to tell us exactly what Kamala and Biden have achieved in the last 3.5 years. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's keep going.
Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. And how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States. Not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors, and its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back to when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools. We are not going to let him end programs like Head Start that provide preschool and childcare for our children. America, we are not going back.
Hate is such a wonderful thing, right? I mean, aren't the Democrats expert at creating villains to exploit the patriotic spirit of American society? Ooh, goosebumps. I don't know how you feel, but my whole body starts to tremble with joy when I imagine the Democratic fighting for our freedom for another 4 years. Maybe we will be so free that we fall asleep under the stars because we loved our homes. Then we finally all be equally poor. God bless America. And now, let me know your thoughts. Feel free to vent into the comments, I'm curious. And if you want to see a passionate Kamala supporter literally lose in an interview when a Republican criticizes her, check out the next video. Just click here and the journey continues. Thank you for watching, see you the next time. Until then, ciao.